Hey, mate.
Hi.
Going live onto Facebook. Excellent. We've got 3 minutes before start. Hello, Wesley. Where are you calling in from, Wesley? Where are you beaming in? Brisbane.
Yep.
Sunny Brizzy.
And Fanny,
Hello, Fanny. How
welcome.
are you?
Where you just let us know where you're calling in from today.
And I've just put up a link, a LinkedIn for how you can connect with Stephen, and also I've popped up his web address for his consultancy with Carvey, who we had on yesterday. Carvey was excellent, talking all about conversations that change your world. Thank you for those of you who are joining now to the Superhuman Summit. Great to see you all joining us. Excellent, talking all about conversations.
That's right. Facebook.
That's it, going live. There you go. That's how you know you're live, when it goes on in the background. And we've got Tracy in the background has said hello to both of you. I've been looking forward to this all day. So have we, my friend. So
Tracy from Newcastle.
She's a dear friend of mine.
Welcome, Tracy.
She's awesome. Welcome everyone that's coming into, there we go, there's Michelle. Hello, Michelle, how are you doing? Our co-founder here at Human Power, Michelle Crawford. She's done her good deeds for the day. She's done all of her interviews and live streams, so it's her turn to sit in the background and watch and check that I do the right thing, right? So far, so good. So make sure you connect in with Stephen. Come and say hello. Tell us where you're calling in from. Hello, Nicole. Good to see you back on again. Susan, Wesley. Nice to see everyone joining in. Come one, come more. Sound like I'm at the circus. So just to reiterate, for those of you, if you haven't been on one of the Superhuman Summit calls and webinars before, just invite you, if you're in Zoom, to please use the chat boxes below. So chat away if you want to just tell us your name and have a chat. And even throughout Stephen's presentation, I know he wants it to be really interactive, so please chat in the chat box there. But if you have a specific question that you would like answered, if you can pop down and have a look at the bottom, there's 2 little word bubbles with Q&A next to it. And if you could use the Q&A for asking specific questions so that we make sure we see it and can come and respond to you. So please use that. Hello, AJ and Stephen from chilly Sydney. It's chilly now, huh, Susan? You've been to a few today. Thank you for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed your brain-filled Saturday with us. People are coming on board now in the Facebook Live group as well. So hello to all of you in Facebook land. Same thing, if you can use the chat box in Facebook Live, I will be doing my best to monitor that and keep up to speed with all of you and answer all your questions. So you can see we're live. Yep, there we are. And I'm watching you. I'm watching you in Facebook land, and I will answer your questions. So you are welcome to bring those to us as well. And we want this to be as interactive as possible. It's lovely to have a global community of people. There is Nosh. I was waiting for you, Nosh. It wouldn't have been a complete day without seeing your name pop up in the chat box again. Hello, Nosh. Look, everyone else knows who you are too. They're all saying hi to you. AJ does a phenomenal job of keeping up. You've beaten me a few times though with posting, Nosh. So yeah, I've got my eye on that. Hubub, hello from Abu Dhabi again. Nice to see your name pop up as well. I know you were on one of our last sessions with Paul Smith, and I hope you got lots of value out of that. He was a gem. So we're after the hour now. Oh, I win, do I, Nosh? Good to hear, good man. And I've got the microphone, so you don't get much say in it, do you? So let's get underway. Welcome to everyone once again. This is the most delicious human next to me. Over there, he is on my screen. I don't know where he is on yours, but he's there on mine. And here we go with a bit of the Brady Bunch. That's what it feels like when we're in these screens all the time, doesn't it? And his name is Stephen, and Stephen Barclay is a dear, dear friend of mine. I know I've already chatted on about him all day, actually, and said I was waiting for this session. He is someone who I have known for a long, long time. So over 20 years. Yep, we're starting to show our grey hairs and our age, Stevo. We used to work together in a health service where our offices were right near each other, weren't they, for many years. And we also worked on many projects together. I was in public relations, he was the quality manager, and we had all sorts of things that we did together. In particular, we also did a values project that was so wonderful and touching, and I think is what really brought us to become such good friends, because we realized through the process of doing a values project that our values were aligned. Now, Stephen is also one of the very first meditators I met in my life. It was one of the first people I was exposed to that did meditation, and another lady that I worked with at the time, Jane, was also a meditator. So I had these beautiful, calm people around me, and I was a bit cray-cray, could we say. I was always rushing, doing. And I was like, I want a bit of what they're having. And so it was so amazing to have Stephen come back to Australia, and he's going to tell you more about that because he has been in India for a number of years now. But really, I think the title, which is Amplifying Your Intuition in Times of Great Noise. That's what the title is for tonight. And that's what we're going to be talking to. And so to start off, I think Stephen's already posted a question. Do you want me to ask that question, or do you want to start?
Please. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's already asked a question, and that's what I love about him. He's a professional facilitator as well as many other hats he wears. So he's very good at drawing out the gold out of you. And he's just asked, amplifying your intuition in times of great noise, what was it about tonight's title that attracted you to join this call? So start popping your answers in. We'd love to know. And you people out there in Facebook land, tell us, what was it that attracted you? So Noshi's saying, we all have intuition. How do I tap into it further? Yeah, good point.
Right. Yeah.
What else?
And we very much wanted to make this interactive and crowdsourced because when I find, and thank you very much for your introduction, AJ, and it's been an amazing relationship. And as you said, I think one of the things that made us bond very much was our work on values together. And actually, I'll make mention to that in relationship to intuition a little bit later on. So yes, we are interested to hear what you have to say with respect to what attracted you here. If you can just keep reading those out for me, AJ, it's a bit hard for me to keep up with it.
No, I'll keep up with it. We've got that. Nosh said, I mentioned your name so many times he had to watch you, Steve-O. Yeah. And I even talked about, we went and saw the Red Fort together last year in India. Dr. Manu is saying, I guess we need intuition more at these times than at normal times. Yeah, good point.
Manoj, I think that
is saying the highest level of... Oh, is it Manoj? Yes, I've got a dot on my screen. There you go. Mahubub is saying the highest level of wisdom is the intuition and how to tap into it. Susan's saying the same. I guess she's meaning that I've been banging on about you, Stephen. We've got another person on Facebook saying the speaker was the draw card. Woo-hoo.
Nice.
So there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, and actually AJ and I developed the topic together. Just a little bit of working out. And she was pulling things out of me of what was really important to me and what was a large part of my life over the last 20 years. And I can't say that I've always been really tapped into my intuition. It's very much a journey, and it's still a journey of really understanding what intuition is. And the next question I'm wanting to ask you is, what is intuition mean to you? If you were to use another word other than intuition, what word would you use? Because it means many things to different people. And you know, was a blokey bloke really. And if you had mentioned the word intuition to me about 25 years ago, I would have you know, you're in woohoo land. So it wasn't something that I was that comfortable with, but it kept, as I think Michelle said today, it was a universe's way of keeps tapping on your shoulder. And the thing about intuition to me is that it will keep tapping on your shoulder until you take notice of it. And tonight we want to go on to that journey together and just talk about what are the things that have really helped me in build my intuition. And we'll crowdsource that as well. So what are people saying to us, AJ?
I'm on mute. They're saying things like the inner instinct, intuition, a gut feeling, an inner voice, God's noise within me. I like that, Mahubu.
Wow.
I know for me, I say it's a bit of a knowing. You know, it's that when it just drops in and you just know something. Yeah. No, in Facebook land, they're telling us they've put us on the big screen on their TV so they can all watch us.
Lovely.
So, hello.
I hope it's not too scary.
What else have we got? Intuition, sixth sense. Intuition is the inner tutor trying to tell me something which I've been ignoring always. Oh, I like that.
Wow, that's great. Yeah. And it is interesting. And I guess the other part, thank you very much for helping us get a good understanding of it. The word that really connects with me is sixth sense. The reason why it does connect with me is that what I've realized that when you're fully appreciating your five senses and you're acknowledging what they're bringing to you and you're totally embodied, that's when you're able to give life to your sixth sense, which is your intuition. So, and one of the things around building intuition for me is being fully aware of my six senses, my five senses, and that enables my my intuition to become a little bit more alive. And I'll go into that a little bit more. And so the next question that we had was with respect to the second part of the title today, which was around noise. And so what I was interested in this context, what does noise mean to you, and what does noise look like and feel like with respect to intuition?
Great. And I think immediately during COVID, people go, well, there's noise from the media and everything that's going on. But what else? What's some of the noise that can come at you? Some of the noise you're dealing with. So we've got discouragement from others. Nice. Interesting. Noise for me is the inner noise of the disturbed mind. Wow. The negative garbage, to politely put it.
Yeah.
External noise is. Can you tell us a bit more about the external noise you're talking about, Mahubub, there? What specifically? Susan's saying too much information coming from all directions. Yes. What about in Facebook land? They're on a slight delay, so give them a minute to type.
Yeah, sure.
What kind of noise gets in the way of tuning into the intuition? Environmental media, yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes family.
Wonderful. Yeah. And, you know, noise, it can come in all shapes and sizes. And my experience around noise is mainly internal. What I've understood is about taking full responsibility for the noise. And
interestingly, Jennifer on Facebook just said internal. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the internal noise. It may be external, but what I've found over the years that the more that I've begin to create space for my intuition to become more refined. And there's several different ways. And I think that the first time when I really started to become aware of my intuition was probably about 2006. So it's not that long ago. And what led me to that was, it was the end of 2005, I went to a 7-day silence retreat. And at the end of that 7-day silence retreat, so, yep, I'd been meditating during that time. There was no, it was silence. There was no digital, there was no books, there was no reading. It was really a silence retreat. And so the first aspect was I'd been doing a lot of meditating, and I had been meditating at that stage for about 10 years, not continuously, but I'd been practicing meditation for about 10 years. And it was the end of 2005, and so on New Year's Day 2006, I was just sitting there and reflecting on my year that had gone by, and was just writing down things of all of the things that had happened, and relationships, a whole range of different things. And then I just sat there and asked myself a question. And the question was, what will happen? What will I be doing in 2006? And so then I sat in meditation again, and this lightning bolt came to me. It said, you're going to leave your job in 2006 and you're going to work outside of Australia. So it was really clear, and it was a question. And what I've realized is that questions are a really important way for us to refine our intuition. And so I asked myself this question, and up it came. Now, the answer to it didn't come immediately. It came after, initially I thought maybe it might be New Zealand. And then I thought, nah, it's not going to be New Zealand, it's too similar to Australia. Then I traveled to Sri Lanka, and I was in Sri Lanka for 10 days. I thought, oh, maybe it's Sri Lanka, but there was no answer. There was no yes, there was no no. And then I was in India. And then somebody, a very good friend of mine, came up to me and said to me, he said, how ready are you for a change? And I said, what do you mean? What type of change? He said, job change. And I said, yeah, I'm ready, because I'd had this intuition. And then she introduced me to the people at this hospital, which I'd been visiting for about the last prior 10 years. So I knew all about it. And so they asked, will you come and work for us and help us establish proper systems around the hospital? And I went, aha. It was like this moment where I really started to realize that my inner voice had been guiding me, and it spoke. And what were the conditions that made that enabled me for that intuition to speak out, and for me actually to listen to it? And there's often many times when intuition will speak to us, and we don't listen to it. So I think one of the things that's very helpful in guiding our intuition is asking ourselves questions. And whatever those answers that come, just write them down and go back on them and just see if they come to fruition. And that will help you build your confidence. That will help you build your confidence around your intuition. And
so we've got a couple of questions, and given you're talking about questioning your intuition, maybe we can go there. Nosha's asked, what made you go to Sri Lanka and then India? What was the curiosity? And in Facebook, Isabella's asked, was it during or after the retreat that you asked yourself this question?
Thank you. Yep. So the last question first. So it was at the end. So it was the end of 7 days. So it was on the day after the retreat had finished. So it was on New Year's Day. So the retreat finished on the 31st at the end at midnight. And so it was the next day, just sitting quietly by myself. And I wrote that question down, and I wrote that answer down. And I had no idea what it looked like, but I just let time give me the answer. And the second question, I was actually touring Sri Lanka, teaching meditation at banks and tea plantations to senior executives. So that was the reason that I was there. But when I was at Sri Lanka, there just wasn't the answer, but then obviously became clear to me when I got to India where that would be. And I'm interested for you also, what are the things that you do that helps you build your intuition? And I think one of the other things that really helps me is as I said before, is being totally in my five senses. It's something that's sort of maybe a little bit counterintuitive. It's not being ruled by my five senses, but being fully present. And so let's take a journey 13 years later from when I was in India. So I was in India for 13 years, and there was a couple of times when I thought, is it time to go now? Is it time to come back to Australia? And I was back in Australia in March of last year, and I was spending some time with my mother. And my mother's health is not brilliant. And I was noticing, I spent 3 days with her, and I could see how much her condition had deteriorated. And so one morning, early morning, I went for a walk on the beach. We were staying at a place on the Sunshine Coast called Markula. And it was an amazing morning. It was a stormy morning. The sky was grey. It was windy. And I'd walked about 5 kilometres, and I was just starting to come back, and the storm was getting worse. Like, it was really raining cats and dogs, and it was blowing. And it was such a state that the wind was totally in my face. I thought, this is not actually so safe to be on the beach anymore. So I decided to walk up into the sand dunes into the forest, which is like a paper bark, a tea tree plantation. And I walked into this forest, and the forest had sort of broken the sound of the rain, and there were all of these puddles on the floor, and it was like I was in a symphony. And I could really feel it, like my whole body was just shimmering from the energy of the sea, of the salt water, of the sounds, of the grey colour of the sky, of this symphony of the rain hitting the roof of the forest and hitting the puddles on the sandy floor. And it was like, in that moment, I was totally in my body. I was totally aligned with all of my senses. And I was almost weeping with joy of the experience that I was having. And in that moment, I had another Shazam. And the Shazam was, you have to come home, and you have to come home because something big is going to happen. And so this was in April of last year. And, you know, when I told my family and I said to them, look, I'm coming home. And they said, yeah, you've been saying that for years. And I said, well, all the other times I said I was thinking of coming home. And this time I am coming home. And so that level of conviction that came in me, so when I went back and told everybody, they didn't want me to leave, but because of the power of the experience that I had in that moment, it was unshakable. Nobody could move me off my path, and I knew that I had to follow it. Because I followed it to get to India. So when it's telling me it's time to leave, I had to follow it. And so I, you know, these two things, the first one is about asking yourself questions. The second one is about being in your senses and nature, and going out of your normal routine. And that's why holidays and weekends are really important. And, you know, we are busy, we've got lots of things to do, but finding those moments where you completely break from your routine, you're not doing the normal thing, and you're getting your right brain an opportunity to kick in. So AJ, some comments are coming up. And
yes, I think people are relating to this. They love what you said before about a clear answer after a period of silence and how gold that is. We've got people here sharing some of their own stories of, you know, when it was time to leave a country or move, and those sorts of things, and those intuitions, creative visualization, positive thinking, connecting to the supreme, meditation, inner silence. And I know you and I have talked when we met up in India, and interestingly around the New Year time as well, that I had what I would call quite a breakdown right before New Year's Eve in India, and then later had a breakthrough in the mountains in the Himalayas. And same sort of thing, immersed in nature, silent in the process of meditation, asked a question and bang, got an answer. And not always that clear, is it? It's not always that distinct what the answer is. Sometimes you've got to wait for the clues to turn up. But I love how you shared that before, when you said you were coming home, that was an intellectual response. But then when you knew, you know, the amount of certainty and grounding, and even as you shared it, you could hear the difference. Yeah. So what about for people who've never had the bolt of lightning? Because I know my experience was literally a purging and then a bolt of lightning. And I can remember standing on a mountain in a temple and literally doing this with my hands above my head because I couldn't not, like, it was so electric. What about if you haven't had that bolt of lightning? How do you start to listen to this intuition? How do you start to distinguish, is that just my mind telling me what I want to hear, or is that, you know, a gut thing?
Yeah, I think one of the things is to write the things down. When you have an intuition or something, just write it down. It doesn't have to be proven straight away. And I think the big thing is about intuition for me as well. Like, I've just given you 2 lightning bolt moments. I mean, that's 2 lightning bolt moments in 20 years. But there's lots of subtle things that happen. And it's a slow and gradual thing that you do. And look, you know, I think coming back to the silence and the meditation, they've been a big part of me amplifying my intuition and quietening the noise down. So I remember today actually is the 24th anniversary of which I've been sober. And I'd forgotten about it. And just as I was writing the date down this morning, I went 2nd of May, and then it came back to me. And so that was an interesting moment in itself when I was reflecting on it. And I was the guest of honour at a rugby do in Northern England. And I was being plied with free beer. And I'd been meditating up until that stage for about 16 months. And through the meditation practice, one day I woke up in January and I'd become a vegetarian. So in January I'd shifted. Things were starting to shift inside, and I became a vegetarian. And I remember sitting in this rugby clubhouse, and it was maybe my 2nd beer of the night, and it was a big schooner, which is a really big glass of beer, and I'd had 1 sip of beer out of it, and I just looked at it and I just went, I can't do that anymore. And I remember putting it down, and that was it. So there's a lot of noise going on there, you know, and there was the noise of all my buddies and all my mates and all my friends. I had free beer, that's noise, you know, and who's going to give up free beer? And then saying to my friends, you know, that's my last beer. And so I think when I reflect back on it, the meditation had played a large part in the shifting, in sharpening. And I guess one of the things that I've really found also in what amplifies your intuition is to look at those things that you have in your life and you use as an anesthetic, that you use as to dull your feelings, what you're feeling. And I think what has been really important to me is to become more feeling aware. And so those things that I was using as a bit of a crutch to help me numb what I was feeling at any point in time. And so I think the meditation, and then I took a step, I became vegetarian. So shifting energy. I was shifting my attention, and each and every step contributed to a more refined intuition. Have I answered your question?
I'm loving this. So I've asked everyone in the chat boxes to suggest maybe you could write down what are some of the things you use as an anesthetic. I know for me, for a number of years, a good over a decade, I used work as an anesthetic, in that I would tell you I loved my work and I did enjoy it, but I worked and overworked because it was my anesthetic and it was an avoidance of facing other things. You know, I'd stay in the work and keep busy. What are some of the things you all use as an anesthetic? Share away in the chat box. Yep, work. Susan's got work as well. The people are saying congratulations on your 21st anniversary.
24th, yeah.
24th anniversary of being sober. That's awesome. Sleep as an anesthetic, work, hibernating, using the business, work, experiencing the bodilessness state in meditation, films. Yeah, Rosemary's got films. Lots of people do binge watch on TV or good movies
Netflix.
or whatever it might be. Netflix, yeah. Yes. What about for you guys in Facebook land? What are some of the things that you use as an anesthetic? And then friends and the outside world. Yep. Or from friends.
Look, I think the other thing is to be just very gentle on ourselves, is that we do have anesthetics, and sometimes you give up one and you take up another. And it's a process. And I think one of the things that I enjoyed about Ankush's talk last night from London was that his realization that really enabled him to move forward was that we're all imperfect, and it wasn't a competition. And so I think it's what I realize about intuition, it's not about me, it's about we. I know that when my intuition becomes sharper, it's helpful to other people. And it's also because one of the purposes of the SuperHuman Summit is raising the level of consciousness. And if we can help the people that we work with to raise their level of consciousness, what effect will that have on their work? What will that have on their creativity? What effect will that have on their productivity and their efficiency?
And we're getting some people on Facebook. I'll just acknowledge them. Thank you for contributing as well. They're saying busyness, work. We've got someone here sharing that I was using alcohol but stopped about 16 months ago and now have moved to sugar, but now I think it's social media. So I hope we're not contributing to that, because this is good stuff. Washing the dishes with the talk on. Yes. Finding the competition with myself, not others. So yeah, I think you're raising some really good points, Stephen, and ways to build that intuition.
And I invite you to make your own list on what builds your intuition. And I think the things that we've talked about so far is questions, writing your answers down, breaking with routine, which I find for me is, break outside of that, give yourself, because the greatest, what do you call it? The one that has impact on our intuition the most is busyness. That we're so busy that we're not giving our mind that rest. And I think, was it Ankush that mentioned it last night about the progeny and the thought, the children, the bubbles, that one thought leads to another child. And so
had little mice.
Giving ourselves space and times in our day to be able to just allow the mind to be quiet. And one of the practices that I have only started more recently is these morning pages, which is coming from, I think, The Artist's Way. Is that correct? Kavi is online, I think, and he's the one that introduced me to The Writer's Way. And what I do in the morning is I have 3 blank pages, and after my morning meditation with my cup of tea, I sit with my pen and I just write. And because what I've noticed is the stuff that comes out, because my subconscious is a little bit prepared because of the meditation and the quiet time, and it just bubbles out. I have no agenda, I have no structure, and I just write. And even this morning when I was writing, a whole heap of different stories started to emerge for me about the use of my intuition. So writing is a useful tool, and the other one is around feeling more, thinking less, which is not so easy, and is the reason why I practice meditation. And one of the practices for me is learning to be the observer, and also AJ talked a lot about that in her talk around shifts. And learning to be the observer of the things that that are going on around you. And one of the stories that I'm remembering is around intuition. Is AJ was mentioning that she was in India, and so I was living in a place called Mount Abu in Rajasthan, and AJ was up in Delhi. So I decided with a friend to travel to Delhi so I could catch up with AJ. And so we went to the Red Fort, and we also went to, oh gosh, I always forget the name of it. It's a famous mosque.
We went to the amazing mosque right in the middle of
one of the biggest mosques. Yeah, right in the middle of Delhi. And it just so happened that whilst we were in Delhi, my cousin was visiting Delhi with his 2 children and his wife, but we had made no plans to meet up. And Delhi is huge. I mean, it's massive. I mean, the population the size of Australia. So that gives you some, or much bigger than that, I think, to give you some idea. And Delhi is just, you know, is people everywhere. And so we decided to go to this mosque, and I'm standing in the middle of the mosque, and I'd made no arrangements with my cousin, did not know where he was staying or anything. And there I am standing, and AJ was standing just next to me, and my cousin walks up to me and stands in front of me and says, "Is that you?" And so it was just like he also had no plans, and he was walking down into the market, and he said, "Just let me go upstairs, let me go check out this mosque." And I don't think we had plans of it either. Let's just go and check out this mosque. And we all turned up. I don't know what's working there. Is that just synchronicity? Is that a coincidence? Is intuition working? I'll let you decide for yourself. But
it was so delicious, and watching you guys reunite was so beautiful. It was just joyous, and actually, you know, everyone's in a mosque and kind of being quiet and praying and gathering in families and that sort of thing, and we're like, ah, very excited.
Yeah, and it was, that moment stayed with me for weeks and weeks and weeks, thinking about how it happened and the fact that it happened. Yeah, so I mean, it's like, yeah, bit woohoo, but it's really, you've got to work out what intuition means to you. We all explore and be curious and find out ways in which we can build our own intuition, and find different ways in which you can build it. I think one of the other aspects that has helped me is around values alignment. And there was a moment that AJ was mentioning at the beginning, that we did some work together around values for our hospital, but we also did some work called Values in Action for the community, and we ran a series of workshops. And I think it was in the early noughties, 2000 sometime, and it was around the time of the Enron, the big incident. And so there was a lot of concern in the community about how that had happened, and about honesty and ethics, etc. And we had this workshop, which was just enabling people to explore their values and helping people to see that the things that we have in common are much stronger than the things that set us apart. And I remember at this workshop, there was one woman at the end of the workshop, and she came up to me and she was in tears. And she said to me, "I cannot believe I haven't asked myself these simple questions about values." And they're very just simple. We'd asked questions about values, and it had created a real shift in her, and a recognition of the things that were important to her. And what I find is that when we are really asking ourselves questions and we're clear about our values, that creates an anchor for us. And the values alignment in us is what helps our intuition be really clear. What's important to me, what's not. It sort of acts like an energy in our subconscious to guide us and direct us.
Which again kind of goes back
to
what you were talking about when you were talking about noise and reducing that. And I keep getting a visual when you're speaking of, you know, those snow domes that you used to get, the snow globes?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you shake the snow globe and then there's all of the snow going everywhere, you can't necessarily see the nativity scene or the picture or whatever. And you've got to wait for that snow or the artificial snow in it to settle in order to get a clear view of it. And that's what I'm envisaging when you're saying these things, you know, even with the values, to get clear on your values is like that settling and a knowing then in order to progress forward or see a clear picture. You're talking about your meditation, and I know someone asked a question in the Q&A before, what was difficult about the silent meditation and what was delightful about it. So maybe you can even share about that, because it's that silence and it's after the 7 days, isn't it, that you got that clarity?
Yeah. Look, I think that meditation is like anything. It's a practice, and you're developing the muscle to be the observer of your thoughts and feelings. And really meditation is just that. And you're learning to be more feeling aware and to connect to that reservoir of powers, qualities, values that we all have inside of us that are hard to tap into because our minds are so busy. And so that was really, I'm not sure it was my first experience of silence, but it's the longest period of silence. And I think you go through phases in the first couple of days. So definitely at the end of 7 days, 7 days is different from day 2, and day 4 is different from day 2, and as you go through. So, but it definitely gave me an appetite to continue that practice, which I try as much as often, but I start every day with a good 2 hours in the morning that are silent, with no sort of sound or anything, just being fully aware of what's going on in my world and just really connecting to the environment that's around me.
Beautiful. And I know I practice slow mornings. I don't know if it's 2 hours of silence necessarily, but it's definitely 2 hours of focus on what's important to me and regrounding and doing my yoga and meditation and all of those. I think while we're talking about intuition, it would be lovely to ask other people in the chats as well, what are some of the signs that you have of intuition? And Nosh has said you do 2 hours daily. Just confirming that.
Yeah, yep. I do rise quite early, so that gives me the opportunity to be silent. Those times for me is a digital detox, and finding times throughout the week also to have digital detox, because that was mentioned at the beginning when we were asking people to crowdsource around what is the noise. And it's the information overload. And you know, I've been working, our organisation, Flint Rock, we've been working with organisations and just helping them in this transition from working in offices to working remotely. And so we were, you know, giving them some tips about, you know, that whole thing of limiting how much social media that you're absorbing in a day, and how many times you check the news, or how many times you check the COVID-19 number of cases and things like that, because that's, you know, that does have an effect on our the vibrational level of our mind. And so I think that we do need to be conscious that intuition is a vibrational thing. And so whatever we can do to increase our vibrational frequency is going to help you hear your intuition, is going to help amplify your intuition, and just and rather than, you know, making more noise inside.
I'll just pause and have a look at quickly what some of the things are in Facebook, because people are loving what you're talking about, and there's lots of activity going on there. Oh, someone's saying The Artist Way by Julia Cameron. Yep, and that they love that as well, her morning pages. Anne is saying she loves it when those weird happy things happen, which was about us having that meeting. Intuition is the driver of synchronicity. We've got Isabella said, we may not have arranged the meetup, but perhaps we both wished for it in our hearts, and that's why it came about.
Wow.
Michelle's saying,
that's so true.
Bali. Yeah.
What was that?
Michelle's saying, oh my gosh, Bali, because I mentioned Bali because her and I had a huge number of synchronicities the last few times we were there doing writing projects. People are saying that they feel their intuition in their heart. That's how they have signs. And here in our chat box, we've got people saying, Mahubub said he used to get positive dreams. People are saying digital detox is helpful. And Pooja is saying, I feel uneasy when a thought crosses my mind and I just know that it's going to come true, especially if it's something that's not good, that there's an uneasiness and a warning of what might be to come. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think listening to our body is a really good way of knowing that intuition is speaking, because it will be noticed in your body before you noticed it in your subconscious. That's the level that it's working at. And particularly if we've ignored our intuition, as Michelle said today, I think it will keep finding ways to tap you on the shoulder to let you know that it's there. So I think listening to the body is a really important way of helping you identify that maybe you're not listening to your intuition. And I think there's a couple of other ways to know that you're not listening to your intuition. I think avoidance. If you're avoiding making a decision, is often a sign that, you know, the answer's there. Why aren't we taking that particular decision? And we'd be interested to, you know, what are the signs for you that you've noticed that you haven't taken notice of your intuition?
So maybe people can jump in and answer. And I know Michelle just wrote, us running this summit is a great example of using intuition, because we actually wanted to do something to support the world and humanity at this time during COVID-19. And we tossed a few ideas around and none kind of quite sat. And so we said, okay, you know, that's okay. And we left it. And then it was a few days later that the summit idea came up. And as soon as I talked with Michelle about it, we were both like, yes, we just knew. And it was a vibratory thing, as you're saying, Stephen. The intuition was vibratory in that both of us got goosebumps, or truth bumps, as you might call them. We had chills and we were zingy. We just knew, both of us. And it was, I think the left side of our body, was it, Michelle? We both just went, oh, my whole side has lit up. So yeah, it's different every time. People are saying here, someone told me that tinnitus is a sign of not hearing. Very interesting. Yes, goosies, Nosh.
Yeah, great, thank you. And I know that we're coming close.
The time, yeah. We don't have a speaker straight after, so we don't have to jump off straight away. We can go to.
Yeah. So I think, in summary, many of the things that I've found for building our intuition that has worked for me is around questions. And I think the question you ask, it obviously has to be an open-ended question, but it's an exploratory question, and writing your answers down. The morning pages is something that's worked really well for me. Doing things that break outside of your normal everyday routine on a regular basis to give that sense of space for your mind. Meditation for me works. It has helped over the years. It's helped sort of slow my thinking down, helped me to be more of a detached observer of the things that are going on around me. Writing the morning pages. Is there anything else that I've left out that we've mentioned so far?
For some people, you know, being in nature, it could be painting, and for a lot of people, it can be music as well. Can bring that about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I just wanted to say to people, if you've got a question, please pop one in the chat box. I know I've got one here on Facebook as well. As Stephen's talking, we can come back to those.
Yes.
So maybe I can share this question with Stephen, which came from Jackie. Thanks, Jackie. And it's, if your intuition is telling you an idea is great, how can you differentiate that with fear? Because both tend to show up in the same way in my body. And yeah, fear can be a really strong enemy of intuition, can't it? So how can she differentiate that with fear?
Yeah, look, I think that's probably instinct. And the fear is often trying to tell us not to do something. How do you differentiate? Look, I think it takes time. If you notice it and you're not so sure, is to sit with it. Is to give it some space and to give it some silence. Because yeah, it's a difficult one to differentiate between fear. I think that the only way that I do it is around kindness. I just focus on self-kindness in that moment, and even to say, I don't need to make a decision so quickly. If I'm not sure about that decision and which direction to go, I can give it some space. I can give it some time. So yeah, I think that it's a challenging one, but I just think it takes practice to work it out, whether it's a fear or whether it's a genuine thing that I need to be doing.
And I love how you just mentioned giving it space, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. Is all of it needs a bit of space and a buffer around it, doesn't it? Even the questions need space to land. I know I often ask questions before meditation, and if I'm forcing it too much, I never get the answer. And I might get it a week later when I've forgotten about the question and I've given it space, and there comes an answer. Lots of people are saying stuff in the chat box here, Steve. Gardening for Shanti is one way of tapping in. Carvey saying walks and travel, and that you have to speak about it. Rosemary's asked a question: how do you manage to stop the avoiding tactics when you know what you should be doing?
Yeah, if anybody has the answer to that, please type it in. How do you, yeah, look, I think the first thing, Rosemary, great question, is awareness, is to acknowledge that avoidance is happening. You can't change it until you acknowledge it. And I'm not a person to get into analysis paralysis, but you know, it's the first thing is to acknowledge the impact that the avoidance is having on me, and also to speak it out, maybe to somebody who's trusted to you, that I'm noticing that I'm really avoiding this, but I'm not sure why. What should I do? That can also be a question to yourself. That can also be something that you can do with your morning pages. A blank page does amazing things. I never knew how powerful this practice would be. The morning pages in the morning, the ideas that come, the things that surface that I had forgotten about. Hope that helps, Rosemary.
And again, that's more of space, or the idea of white space. And even decluttering, I've found, can help with that clarity, not having stuff all around us. You know, I used to say that my house was noisy because there was stuff everywhere. And so that stopped intuition. We've had another question in the Facebook group. How do you know if you've created the idea or if intuition has given it to you? Great question.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I think if the result, you know, the impact of what you've created, it may be different from if it was pure intuition. If you've sort of, you know, added to it above and beyond the intuition, the impact of it may be quite different. So often I would know from the effect that has overall.
Yeah, which again comes back to attachment, which we've talked about with quite a few speakers, you know, and detaching from our need, isn't it? What's the intention behind? A beautiful question we've just been asked, and we will go right up to the hour probably, because Stephen, this is juicy, right? It's juicy, isn't it? Is everyone okay to keep going for a couple of minutes? Is that, what if you know that the path, what if you know what the path is, but those who love you are afraid to let you walk it? I feel that one.
Yeah. And I think that was also discussed. I think it was it Jill this afternoon? One of our speakers today was, I can't remember who it was, but it was about when your partner isn't feeling the same way you are about your worldview and how things are going. Look, that's a tough one, but I think that the main thing is that you and how you present yourself and how you're changing. You can't preach to anybody that they should be following the same path as you. The path that you're walking has to be attractive. And the way you present yourself, how it's impacted on how you interact with the world. If that's something that they want to follow, they'll follow. But yeah, there's nothing gained by trying to pull somebody along the same path with you. And it takes a lot of patience and a lot of gentleness. And I've been in that boat before. And I'm sure that question speaks to a lot of people.
And it reminds me a lot of what I love and reference in so much of my own work, which is David Hawkins' frequency scale, and the fact that anything that's below a vibration of 200 requires force. You know, you have to force people to your way, whereas above 200, which is love, joy, peace, you know, all of those things that are above, even acceptance, have innate power. They don't require force anymore. Yeah, it reminds me a lot of...
The path to intuition is a gentle path. And it creates a lot. It's all of those small steps that we talked about, creates the space within. And most of the time you don't know that you're working on intuition. Some of the times you don't know that your intuition is guiding you. And I think back to that moment when I decided that my first career was a hospital administrator. And I remember my father taking me to many different university career nights to help me make my decision. And he wanted me to be a teacher because being a teacher was a safe, secure job. But it wasn't sitting with me. It wasn't sitting with me that that's what I wanted to do. And we went to all of these different places, and then we went to this university in Brisbane, and we went to a whole heap of different places. And I remember there was this little room just to the side, and I said, let's go in here, Dad. And I walked in, and this room was all about hospital administration. And immediately I said, this is what I want to do. I knew it. This is what I want to do. And when I got home and told my mother, and I said, I want to be a hospital administrator, she knew there was no way she was going to change my mind, because it was one of those moments that was really clear to me. And then I thought, as I went along in my career, there were many moments that I realized, you know, that that moment was the beginning of my intuition really guiding me. I didn't know that then. It was my inner wisdom was saying, this is the path that you are most aligned to. This is the one that you you need to go. But I was very clear. It was as clear as crystal at that moment that this was my path. But I didn't know that that was intuition at that stage of my life.
Wow. And so profound that you really had that strong knowing each time, you know, which I think is also telling you each time to trust that intuition. And when you have, you know, how that's turned out. We do have one more question in the Q&A box. Should we do that one as a final question?
I've got that, and I will answer that. And what I was just going to say is that I invite the participants here is to write down all of those moments where you think your intuition guided you. Write down all, and you'll be surprised, as I was, as even preparing for this talk has helped me identify so many moments of intuition. So I invite you to write that down. But also for yourself, what are the things that work for you that help you build your intuitive capabilities? So the question is, what questions do you ask yourself for the morning papers? I don't. I just open the pad, I have my cup of tea, and it's just blank, and I just start writing. And you'll be surprised, just start writing on the page and it just starts flowing. I think it's important not to have an agenda, and that's what my mentor told me. He just said, just start writing. I read a little bit about it. I looked it up. I didn't buy the book. I just read about some summaries on some blogs and what you should do in your morning page and etc. And then I just got enough and I just started writing. So yeah, it's no question. Hope that was helpful.
I love that. I love a bit of automatic writing myself. And I know my ritual is when I get on a plane. As soon as you get up to that 40,000 feet, it's like the air is clear, there's space up there. And that's when I always get out something and just write whatever automatically comes to mind. So some great tips for people there thinking about how might I tap into my intuition more. Shall we answer that final question? Because I know people are starting to need to go.
Yeah, great.
A lot of people are saying another session.
Whilst you're doing that, just please write, what's your main takeaway from today's session? And what's the final question?
We've said what questions do you ask yourself? We've got that one. Someone had asked earlier on about, did your intuition align with your values and faith? So did you connect this intuition feeling with your values and faith? That was one I hadn't answered.
Did you connect? I think that the more I became clearer about my values, they sort of work like a magnifying glass in helping bring my intuition alive in terms of where it was needed, and helping me stay alignment to those values. So I think that the clarity process, and that's been quite a process, and I do regularly go through and review values because I do a lot of work in healthcare, working with people around values. So every time I'm working with them, I'm asking myself questions about the values. So AJ, do you think that we have time for a quick meditation just to sign off for 2 minutes?
Oh, I think that would be delicious. And maybe if you are writing your takeaway, you can pause from doing that for a moment. And it would be beautiful to do a little meditation to close out. Thank you.
And thank you. That was a suggestion from Pooja. So thank you, Pooja, for that suggestion. So just invite you, and you can keep your eyes open for this meditation. And just allow yourself to be fully aware of all of the noises that are going on around you. Whatever it be, ticking clock, traffic, people speaking, TV. It's just sound energy, let it go, let it flow. Be aware of what you're seeing through your eyes, furnishings, colours, computer screen. Just allow yourself to gently observe what you're seeing. Just seeing yourself as the observer. Feeling the warmth or the cool through your skin. The feeling of the cloth against your skin. Feeling of your back against the chair. Just be fully conscious and aware of all of these sights, sounds. And just be aware of your breath. Feel the coolness of the breath through the nose and out through the mouth. Be aware of the breath through the nose hitting the back of the throat and the chest rising. And just be aware of any thoughts or feelings that you're having right now. Just ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? Feel it, acknowledge it, and just let it go like it's a cloud in the sky. And just allow yourself to connect in with your own reservoir of peace that just needs the space, just needs the thoughts to be still for it to emerge and fill your whole being. Just allow yourself to hold on to this experience. Just let it softly reverberate through your body, into your room, into your world. Namaste.
Namaste, my friend. And I guess to close out, I would like to share just what I felt in that moment, is a deep gratitude for you, my dear friend, my brother. I've always loved your conviction for what you do in service for others. And I have great admiration for your generosity of spirit. Has introduced me to other people, has shared resources and information, has always seen knowledge as something to be shared and not withheld. And his calmness has always been there as long as I've known him. And I wanted to share one little memory that's actually quite personal between us. I hope you don't mind me sharing. In that, as my dear brother, we spent some time together in the Blue Mountains at one of the BK centres. And I remember arriving that night, and I'd driven for about 3.5, 4 hours to get there. And it was all rush, 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 you know, and I'd been on the road. And when I arrived, Stephen kind of checked, had I eaten, did I need water, whatever. And then he said, let's just go out for a walk. And it was dark and it was chilly up there. And we went and we ended up laying on the road. Do you remember? And we lay on the road for like an hour and a half in the middle of the road, looking at the stars above us and in absolute wonder at the cosmos and just the grandeur of the universe. And we really didn't even need to speak. And at that moment, I came home. Yeah, came home to myself. So this man is a dear human. a brother to me, or like a brother. And I know that all of you will have little bits that you've taken away from tonight. And thank you for sharing that in the comments, which we'll have a look at. And I know we've gone a little over time. So I want to give my heartfelt Michelle and I throughout this summit, because you volunteered to do that without being asked. And it's been a blessing and a gift, even though you're on Stradbroke Island and a long way away from us, knowing that you're there energetically and supporting us and sending us little messages and being there and bringing the meditators together is just, again, another extension of a demonstration of the character and the quality of who you are. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
Thank you, AJ.
Thanks to everyone. Remember, day 7 of the summit is actually a rest and reflection day, and it's meant to be a day to regroup and to think about what you've learned so far. If you haven't had a chance to watch all of the speakers, please go back and check some of them out, because they are amazing, just saying. And prepare yourself, clean the slate, get ready for the final day on day 8, which is Monday. Thank you all. Have a blessed evening, day, lunchtime, noon, morning, wherever you are in the world.
Thank you.
Bye.